Hello, and welcome back to Hyperbaric Living Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Masha. Today I have with me Lynne Becker from Power of Patience. It's a special episode that will be especially interesting for patients suffering from traumatic brain injury and for their caregivers. Welcome to the show, Lynne.
Thank you, Dr. Masha. It is an absolute pleasure to be here.
Well, let's start from the beginning. You have quite a story that brought you to what you're doing now, and I'm not going to give any spoilers. Let's start with your story.
I am a biostatistician and an epidemiologist, which everybody has learned what that means with COVID. And I've done clinical trial research for the past 25 years. But in 2015, my youngest daughter was injured with a traumatic brain injury. And then 4 days after her event, she suffered a stroke. And unfortunately, while she was away at school, we were told she's fine, she just needed rest. But for 18 months, her condition was worsening. I was going from doctor to doctor to doctor, and finally to the point where I gave up until I received a phone call from a clinician who said, "This is not a concussion. This is a traumatic brain injury. You've got to get her care managed better." So with that, I then embarked upon a whole journey of trying to find physicians or clinicians or anybody that could actually help my daughter with her condition. And it was heartbreaking, to tell you the truth, because I, like millions of others, were being dismissed by the system. And so you have to become your own advocate to make inroads. Trying to even find a clinical trial, because that's the world I came from, was a challenge. There was none to put my daughter on, because I thought potentially we could go down that route as well too. So, when you go through these experiences, not only does the person's world change, but the whole family unit changes as well too. And it's overwhelming at times. My daughter, so it took about 4.5 years to rehabilitate her. And like most, I should really say, people with traumatic brain injuries, it's an invisible injury. We've heard that. We've also heard that no two brain injuries are alike. And I was on a mission because I knew recovery was possible. I had learned about neuroplasticity, but I just could not accept the let her rest, oh, just wait and see approach. I wanted to be much more proactive because I saw other people getting better in other indications. Pretty much her whole entire body broke, the entire autonomic system. So what I didn't, share earlier was that she not only became colorblind in one eye, she had no peripheral vision. Her vision went from 2015 to not quite legally blind, but really bad, to say the least. We had heart conditions where her heart would plummet to 40 and then explode above 200 in microseconds. So she basically was passing out while just in bed. She started having these tremors where she couldn't hold anything. She couldn't walk a straight line. She had to learn to crawl again. She didn't know ABCs. And we're talking a child who was in the 98th percentile ranking and a Division I athlete. And so knowing who they are and what they were before the injury, you have to then deal with that whole emotional thing. So it was a lot of different doctors, because many doctors, while they, quote, may treat anxiety or depression or whatever, they aren't trained in a brain injury capacity. So again, it was a lot of start and stops, but Natalie kept in control of her school. And she would have to drop out at times. We would have to fight for services because she couldn't read the board and so on and so forth. But she ultimately graduated from college. She has an accounting degree. And after the last go-rounds of therapy with some QEEG therapy, she then regained even more of her neuroplasticity. She went to graduate school on a scholarship and is fully employed and just got married.
Wow.
It is a happy ending. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on her recent marriage. And I'd like to say Wow, what a story. And I'm sure many traumatic brain injury patients and their caregivers recognize the symptoms. And the biggest problem with traumatic brain injury, as you've already mentioned, that there's not enough information. First of all, it takes many years to receive a proper diagnosis. And secondly, there's not that many treatment options, or at least they're not mainstream. So it's not like we have a mainstream protocol that many doctors are familiar with. And once a patient gets diagnosed, they receive proper treatment protocols, proper treatment that would eventually, make them better. So that's the problem. I recorded a podcast episode last year with late Dr. Kelly Ryder, who specialized in traumatic brain injury and hyperbaric oxygen therapy. He did a lot of research in the field, and he did a lot of work in the field. Unfortunately, he passed away last year. And there are other doctors who are doing work in this field, but we're lacking the studies, we're lacking the conformity, so to say. And I think that's what led you to develop your own, to start your own company that does what?
I launched Power of Patients. So I lost my job when I had to become my daughter's full-time caregiver. Again, that is a very common situation. But I have to say, when I was going through this, I thought I was an anomaly. I didn't know there was literally millions of people experiencing this. So then as the statistician, I'm thinking, dear God, there's millions of people and we have no standard of care, just like what you said, and we have no diagnostic tests. It really truly relies upon that patient intake and narrative. Well, before I launched the company, doctors were not listening to me. I would go in as a very good observer because I could see what would happen hours or days after her therapies. And it wasn't until I started manually tracking my daughter just to show them little things, right? Because she had to be on a heart monitor. I tracked her sleep and so on and so forth. And when I showed them the graph, they immediately went, "This is cool. Can I take a copy?" And I'm like, oh my God, this is what I've been saying, right? And I speak their language. And it's like, God, what do people who aren't in the business, if you will, have to go through? So that was my motivation to start it. And Natalie started to get better because they were listening to me, because I could show, please stop now, because if you push her too far in this protocol today, she's going to sleep for 5 days. She's going to miss school again. She's not going to be able to be functioning, right? And that was that constant 1 step forward, 10 steps back, not having that standard of care. So fast forward a little bit, I did get a job. I went back to work for the US government, for the Department of Defense, and I managed their TBI portal for the special ops teams, the SEALs, the Green Berets, and things like that. I learned of new therapy where they use a lot of hyperbaric, Masha, a lot. And they also use a lot of QEEG. Now, we've done nutritional therapy for my daughter as well, too. But to your point, when and where and what's the combination, right? And I think it also speaks to how do you define and describe each person's injury accurately to know when and where and to prescribe certain things. So I was really excited with this position. I was learning a lot, but I also saw a lot of personal conflicts because soldiers are not better in 6 weeks. I understand it costs a lot of money to put them in those roles, but as a mom and a caregiver, I just had a personal conflict. And that was when I resigned and I said, I'm launching Power of Patients. And so I launched the app, and that's when I created Power of Patients, my company, so that the patients and the caregivers could actually start taking all their words and describing it, and we turn it into data so they can show the doctor their data. And that was the essence of starting Power of Patients, to help empower people like I was able to do with myself, to get my daughter better, to help them figure out to get better and what they need to do as well.
And this app helps patients and their caregivers speak the same language, with their doctors, because a lot of times we come to see our doctor and sometimes we can't really articulate what happened, or maybe we're missing some information and the doctor's not taking it seriously and we get frustrated and then nothing's happening. So what this app allows us to do is plug in all the information. I've done this therapy and this is how I felt. This is what my heart rate was. This is what my temperature was. I was more irritable. I slept better. I slept worse. I mean, there are so many options there. And then you take this information and show it to your doctor, and your doctor can see this information in the language that they understand. And
That
that's
is exactly
super,
right.
yeah, that's super important. And that makes the whole life of a patient a lot easier. And I think that also will speed up the progress, right? Because there's something else that I wanted to add here, because it happens a lot with hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And I see it a lot with my patients and other doctors' patient cases as well. Too much of a good thing is not a good thing.
Yes.
And especially this subset of patient population is really fragile and really sensitive. And everybody who's had brain damage would say, I'm super sensitive to things. I can't take this supplement because I'm sensitive. I'm doing hyperbarics and I become too excited, or I'm sleeping for 3 days because all of a sudden it's too much. And we can track those things. And it allows us, I mean, with this app, it allows us to develop a protocol that will better match this patient's needs. And that's, in my opinion, as a clinician, that's what's important and amazing and great about this app. But there are other features, right? And you're going to talk about it now.
I mean, it doesn't even stop there, but you have articulated it perfectly. So we take the words, right? We apply algorithms. We're understanding through these algorithms also impact severity scores we're working on now. So let's talk about that before we dive right back into the hyperbaric. And the simple example is we get put into categories so that it makes it easier to digest the information and assign risk or assign research or even assign therapies, right? And an example here is fall. If I trip and fall, the impact of that fall is not the same as if I fall off of a roof versus if I fall off of a speeding horse. What does the number mean? Well, it might mean that your number is going to take 2 years to get better. Your number, not 6 to 8 weeks. That's hogwash. Your number might also take 3.5 years to get better. And yes, that sounds like a long time, but you at least have a goal. You actually can accept it, because unfortunately, we have so many chronic patients that are on our dashboard years, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. They're struggling with care, right? Because they go back to the neurologist and they get another drug and it doesn't help. It makes them worse. So that's the one thing. And then the point you were pointing out is the personalization aspect. So if you start tracking, okay, these are all my symptoms, these are all my daily problems or interactions that I have that either make me better or make me worse. That's really important to know also, because one, if you're going into that situation again, and let's use school. School can present a lot of, so can work, can present a lot of stressors to people, because you may have a lot of noise. You have to interact with people. And if you have not gotten your autonomic system calmed down and don't know how to control it, that could send you into this terrible overload system, and you're stressed out and you're neurofatigue and you're shut down again for days. The same is, to your point, if you get too much hyperbaric or if you get too much QEEG, when is it right to stop doing it? And in my daughter's case, we did QEEG 2 different rounds. She was napping 4.5 hours every single day, and this was at year 4. And I thought, okay, she's been making all this great progress, but I don't think she can hold a full-time job. So learning about QEEG from the government, I thought, well, okay, why not try it? It's not going to hurt her. And in 5 visits, she literally stopped napping, like literally. There was no other therapy being done. And I thought, holy cow, this is amazing. we completed that session of 12. So should we have stopped at 5? I don't know. I had paid for 12. The doctor said, oh, she gained 37% of her brain function back. I'm like, oh my God, that's like a miracle, right? Let's do another 12. I'm like, okay, I have a job. I can afford this. Okay, let's do 12. And she didn't gain hardly any, right? So
and here's the data for your app, right?
Yeah.
Which is important. By the way, folks,
Right.
QEG combines really well with hyperbaric oxygen therapy for traumatic brain injury. They're cousins. I don't know. They're like best friends. There and with amazing results.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. There's no question about that.
I couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's a hyperbaric show, right? And
Yep.
people want to learn about hyperbarics, and not only hyperbarics, but other therapies that it can be integrated with. And that's the beauty and the power of hyperbarics, that it can be integrated with other therapies to bring bigger results, so we can help more people.
So it's really, really important to get, viral and get all the people in here as much as possible, but clinicians as well. And that's a feature that we added, because now that we started to empower people, we want them to engage with their doctors. So everything is all about the patient and the caregiver. They choose to invite a doctor. Now, a doctor can ask to be invited, don't get me wrong, but the person is in charge of their own health record within Power of Patients. So they can type in the doctor's email, the doctor gets an invite, then they get to look at the patient's data. And that speaks volumes.
You have two different setups. One is for clinicians and the other one for patients. Can we start with patients? What patients can expect when they download this app?
First, they don't have to download anything. We keep it all in the cloud, and they can just access it straight from our website. There's a login button or a register now, and it's free. It will always be free. So a patient or a caregiver can expect to be able to manage their daily symptoms and their triggers and all of their medical conditions. From that, they get these reports. And within these reports, we can show them what's trending up, because that means their severity scores are going up. Along with that number that's going up, we can show them, what did you do that day? What caused it to go up? And that's key. That's the personalization aspect. Clinicians will be able to then go in and see that trend report. But in addition to that, they will be able to click further into it so that they get much more clinical specific data, right? Something that we don't want to confuse patients. We want to keep patients at a very consumable, understandable aspect. It's their words that they're seeing put into graphs. But clinicians, we're changing the words to modify into their language.
So where's this app can be found?
So you just go to our website, which is powerofpatients.com, POWERPOFPATIENTS.com. And top right corner, you just click on register. And Sally is a virtual therapy dog that will guide you through registering. It takes about 2 minutes. And Sally comes and gets you every single day, just like a dog has to go to the bathroom. Sally comes and gets you. I have to be tracked today. So you can track multiple times a day. You can journal with it. You can keep it private. You don't have to share it. It is all about you.
I really like this idea. I like it from the standpoint of patients, because they get a lot of value. They actually get to track what is happening to them. And that will help their doctors create a more effective treatment plan for them.
Right.
And it helps doctors. Again, I just absolutely love this idea.
Yeah, thank you. We're really ready to truly go viral. We really are. We have tested this. MIT, Massachusetts, of the Institute of Technology has validated our algorithms. So now it's time. So I so appreciate you taking the time to let us be on your podcast and share this with folks.
Lynne, thank you for joining me today. It was really a pleasure. I'm going to go and check this out on a clinician side and see what information I can get there. The link will be in the description, in the video and podcast description below. And guys, if you know someone who can benefit from this information, please share this episode with them. Otherwise, I'll see you next week.